Hey everyone, happy Friday. I'm super excited because it's March and March is my favorite day. Yes, you can blame my half Irishness for that, but it's also the first day of International Women Histories Month. So I'm super excited because not only do we get a chance to read and hear about all of the amazing women who have made history, but I'm going to be sure to highlight women every single day that are making history now in engineering and manufacturing. So I'm super excited, but I digress. Today's guest, her name is Nicole Donnelly. Hello, Nicole. How are you doing?
Megan, I am so excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week. This is going to be so fun. Thank you for having me.
I've been looking forward to it too because I'm one of those individuals that struggles with public speaking. Like I always get butterflies and knots in my stomach, and I feel like I'm going to toss my cookie. Have you ever seen Pitch Perfect? Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
Do you remember that scene where she starts to sing? It just goes everywhere? Like that's my worst nightmare. I feel like that's what's going to happen to me sometimes, but it hasn't yet. So hopefully I can keep that.
Good. Yeah, because you've done quite a bit of public speaking yourself.
But I still get nervous. I don't know if that will ever go away, though, to be honest. Maybe it doesn't for some people. I would like to.
Yeah, I think it's healthy. I think it's a part of it. I think that nervous energy is actually a good thing. I think it prepares you to be on your best. And I don't think you can ever truly get away.
I would love to hear someone like Gary Vee or like Elon Musk or who's anyone in a top, or like Allison Gray-Alice, who is from Women in Manufacturing. I would like to hear if they ever get nervous or sweaty or anything like that before they go. And then I would, or even Barbara from Siemens, she's such a great public speaker. So I would just love to know if they get nervous just a little bit, and then I wouldn't feel as bad. But we already have some comments coming in. So if you are joining us today, feel free to drop some comments. Sometimes LinkedIn is a little goofy. You can also go on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter and drop comments there. But we have Shannon here. Yay, I'm so glad she's here. She commented on this morning asking where to view in from. And then we have Angela.
Hi,
hello, Angela.
I love Angela. Good to see you.
And she said, so excited to hear from Nicole. I wanted to meet her when I was in Texas not too long ago, but she couldn't make it work. And I felt so bad because I haven't met her in person yet. So she's one person that I'm looking forward to meet face to face. But Nicole, let's get to you because this is what this is about. Again, welcome to Mavens of Manufacturing, but you are the founder of DMG Digital. So I want to get some background information from you first. What was your dream job growing up? What was your plan to be? What did you want to be growing up? And is that what you're doing today?
No, when I was a girl, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write books. That's what I wanted to do. And I think, I do writing now, obviously in different ways, but I still have a dream of writing a book. It will happen. I haven't written it yet, but it's actually one of my goals to write a book within the next couple of years. But that was what I wanted to do when I was a little girl. And I used to write plays all the time for my class. Like when I was in 4th grade, I'd write these plays and my teacher would let us put them on for the class. It was so fun. And I just found so much joy in writing the plays. And I went back, I must have gone through my books maybe 6 months ago and found one of them. And I was reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so laughable. It was so funny. It was field trip adventures with Miss Maddox's class, something crazy like that, it was just so fun. So I loved doing that as a kid. And I look forward to writing a book someday.
You should publish that though. That would probably be a great children's book if you think about it. That would be great. I would publish it. That's one of my goals too. And hopefully that is happening sooner than later. I might have some exciting news to share later on. But I definitely want to write a book about all the mavens that I've talked to. I think that would be a great thing. We do have other comments. Becca's here. There was a famous Toastmaster who once said, there are public speakers who get nervous and public speakers who lie and say they don't get it.
That's true.
I agree with that. And then Angela's like, we're going to make it happen one day. Yes, we are. And Chioma, excited about this event. Lots of public speaking. I need tricks. I think you're good at public speaking. I've seen your videos and you're awesome. and make it happen. Be a STEAM diva. Yeah. So she is the founder of STEAM Divas. And
Ooh, cool.
actually hosting an upcoming event. She just posted about it. I need to reshare it, but Chioma, feel free. And I think I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Let me know. Put the phonetic spelling down, and I'll make sure to say it right. I think I got it right one time. But put the registration link in for your upcoming event. I want people to see that and register for it. It's a STEM camp that she's doing, or STEAM camp that she's doing. So and the
Cool.
graphic is awesome. The graphic is really cool on it. So I'm going to reshare that out. And then we have Andrew. Hello, friends. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
So then, Nicole, how did you get involved with manufacturing then? Because you do marketing for manufacturing.
Yes.
So how did tell me how that.
I worked in-house at a manufacturing company that sold air filtration equipment for many years. And when I first started working there, they had no marketing whatsoever. It was like a graveyard. Their CRM was like this old act, terrible system. It was awful. So I came in and set up their first marketing strategy that they'd ever had, got them onto Salesforce, got them onto HubSpot, actually built an inbound, marketing engine for them. We created a ton of video content, a ton of blog article, like content marketing machine. We turned that company into just like this amazing lead generation machine for them through marketing. And I had so much fun building that for them. And it was so rewarding to see what a difference, how it transformed that company. And, we were able to see just like the sales cycle, which, with these manufacturing companies, they can be so long sometimes for the sales cycle. And we were able to see the sales cycle just shorten so dramatically because of all the content assets that we had produced to help, with email workflows and nurtures and all of that. And being able to break down the sales and marketing silo that is so common in manufacturing was such a bear, but being able to see like the sales and marketing team really working closely together and have some shared wins was super awesome. So I was so inspired by that. I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many other manufacturers out there who are just like this company, like that don't have any marketing, or there's maybe one solo marketer who's trying to do it all, right? Which was me, trying to do everything. And you need help. You need partners who can help you. You need support to, be able to get everything in place. And so I wanted to be able to provide that support for other manufacturers and help them transfer. I'm just very passionate about small business. My dad, my grandfather, my great grandfather, and my great great grandmother all owned successful small businesses. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, is how can I support, celebrate, champion small businesses, because they really bring so much to our communities. And
they do.
That's how
I
it's
think
to be.
I think small businesses are like the grassroots of all of us, and there's just so much passion and heart in them. I love working with smaller companies just because they literally bleed, sweat, and cry their business, and it's just fun to work with them.
Amen.
Hard workers. And then we already said that. You are good. Thank you. It's Chiorma. Chiorma or Kiorma? I'm going to get it right one of these days. You are allowed to smack me the next time you see me. And then she said, thank you. Here's the link to register for the event. It's steamdivas.org /events. So please make sure to go there and check that out. She also has a website, and you can actually donate some funds if you want to help out. That is really, really important. I will always promote women-owned businesses as well as what they're doing, because we need help with our workforce. So if you're always asking yourself, what can I do? Support those businesses. So then let's talk about DMG Digital, because that is your company and you're helping manufacturers with marketing services. So are you just focusing on the digital side of things then with your company, or are you doing it all?
Yeah, so we primarily do content marketing. So we call it our content waterfall approach. We'll come in and we'll help them create long form content. So usually it's an SME, a subject matter expert interview that we'll do with the experts on their team, because hiding within every manufacturing company are these just massively brilliant engineers and people who are making such cool stuff. And so we want to shine a bright light on them and bring all of that knowledge forward so that we can really help the people who are having problems find the solutions that are going to solve those. And so the way that we tackle that problem of helping these customers get to the right solution, the right partner is conduct these subject matter expert interviews and create really rich articles, learning center articles for their website that we can then repurpose and turn into video clips for YouTube and
Mhm.
break out into social media clips. So that's kind of like the core of what we do, is creating a content strategy for our clients and really helping to create that content waterfall and taking that
Okay.
off of their plate. So it's, you give us an hour of your time every month and we'll create a month's worth of content for you. And through that process, we've also been doing a lot of e-commerce support for some of these manufacturers. We've helped
Okay.
several of our clients who have, made the transition. They've got great sales and marketing alignment. They've been able to create this nice lead generation machine, and now they're ready to jump into e-commerce and start selling online. And so we've been able to help kind of work hand in hand with our clients to help them get over that hump and really move to starting to sell online. And that's been very exciting to be a part of. So we also do support a lot of e-commerce readiness programs, helping people get their product data ready, helping them get a sales adoption plan in place so that when e-commerce
Mhm.
goes live, the sales team isn't freaked out by it and they're bought into the whole process. So it's kind of
That's
what we're
really cool.
focusing on now. It's exciting.
Do you help with any technical writing services? And this is nothing to do with the conversation I'm asking, because there's a ton of manufacturers looking for tech writing help, and I'm actually turning people away. And I'm trying to suggest as many people as I possibly can, but then that's filling up their capacity. So, do you do any tech writing services?
We primarily just do work for learning centers. I mean,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So
It's everybody is like, when Chat GPT first came out, everybody's like, "Are you afraid about losing your job?" And I'm like, "No, not at all." And
oh,
now like companies are coming out of the
oh
woodwork like,
no,
"I need
yeah.
help with tech writing." And I'm like, see, I told you it's not gonna but let's get to our topic today, because this is gonna be a fun one. So we're gonna be talking about public speaking, and I want to know, like, how did you get involved with public speaking, and how many events have you spoken at?
Yes. So I will say to anyone out there who's thinking about public speaking, it's something that you probably don't even realize that you're preparing yourself to do, to be honest. So for me, it
Mhm.
started when I was early in my career by just leading meetings. So just leading a meeting, a team meeting with a small team,
Oh, that's
leading
a good point.
leading a lunch and learn, for example. Every client call that you lead, if you do any sort of like account management, you're learning how to public speak just from those types of activities, right? Any chance you have to lead is public speaking. So for me, I think for many, many years, that's what I did. I was an account manager. I led client calls all the time, becoming a manager and leading a team. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then also, I'm very active in my church. And so I
Okay.
started speaking in my church. People volunteer for, or they'll ask you to speak. It's all, volunteering to speak in the service on Sundays. And so I would get asked to speak from time to time. Everyone would. And so that was a really great way for me to kind of like hone my, public
Mm.
speaking skills. And I'll tell you, the first time I spoke at my church ever, as an adult, I was so nervous. My voice was wavering. I remember getting up there and I could hear the waver in my voice, and it was awful. So, like, I have totally been nervous. And I think it's very normal to feel that, especially when you first start speaking in front of a large group. And I
Mm.
found that the more I did it, the more comfortable I got over time. It just kind of takes practice. So I started there. And then in terms of like speaking engagements, several years ago, I realized that I knew in order for my business to grow, I needed to do more public speaking. And so I've set a goal. I was like, you know what? I want to actually get on live stream shows like this show, Megan. I was like, I want to be interviewed on more of these shows and tell my story. And so I started just doing more of that. I was introduced to Kurt Anderson,
He's
and
awesome.
yes, and so was able to come on his show and get a lot of experience doing live shows there, and then started doing more webinars. And then my first speaking engagement, like publicly at an actual conference, was last fall. So I'm not, I'm a fairly new, public speaker. I haven't been doing professional public speaking forever, but I
Mhm.
loved it. And how it came to be was I was actually asked by a partner of mine, an e-commerce partner, who was looking for a keynote speaker for this conference. And he reached out to me and asked me to do it. I hadn't been thinking about it. It wasn't something that was even on my radar. And he's just like, would love for you to come and speak and tell your story. And I remember thinking when he asked me, I was like, my story, like, what's unique about my story, you know? And I think a lot of times if you're listening, you might think that you might not have anything to share that would be of value. And I think as I've learned through this experience that that's absolutely not true, that everybody has a story that's important to share, more than one story, and that you've got a story in you that's going to be of value to someone out there.
Mhm.
So don't discount yourself. So I rose to the challenge. I was like, okay, I'll do this, and I'll never forget, Megan, when I went to the venue. I went to the venue the day before to just check it out, which is something I also recommend, is to go, if you're going to do a public speaking engagement, go before, get the lay of the land, see exactly where you're going to speak so you can kind of mentally prepare yourself and physically prepare
Mhm.
yourself. And I remember going to the venue and it was this really cool theater. It was like in New York City, super cool, like all these little theaters, and all of the sessions were in these little theaters. And I'll never forget, I walked on that stage and I got the goosebumps when I got up there. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to do this. I was so juiced up. And
Mhm.
the next day when I went out to speak, I was totally nervous in the morning. Absolutely, like had butterflies in my stomach, but I just loved it. Loved it. It was so much fun. So I, from that experience, was like, oh my gosh, I want to do more of this. This is so rewarding.
Mhm.
Because what happened after that first experience is so many people come up afterwards, and you probably experienced this too, and they say,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I loved your story. This is so helpful. It's really inspired me in this way, or I learned something new that I didn't know before. The last time I went to did it in Miami, I was speaking last month, and I met with a gentleman afterwards, and he was saying, "Oh my gosh, I took your talk and I shared it with my whole team, and there was so much that we learned from what you had shared." And hearing that you're actually helping someone else, you know,
Yeah.
in their business is so rewarding, and you wouldn't do that if you don't get out there and share your story.
Right. Do you think it's more difficult to have a conversation on video and behind camera, or when you're face to face with a bunch of people in a room?
Ooh, great question. Sheesh. I think for me, it's much easier to be behind camera. I think, like me and you talking here, because you can't see the people,
Yeah.
right? But when you're out there in front of people and you see, like, 400 people in an audience, it's a
Yeah.
little bit more intimidating, I think.
It's
So
it's
if you're
it's funny,
speaking
and if you're tuning in, I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions, because I've actually like, so I when I started out in the media publication industry, and we
with
did video. And at first it was kind of nerve-wracking when that red light came on, because it's like, man, I don't want to sound stupid. But then you understand, oh wait, it's recording, so we can edit this out. So it's okay if I sound a little bit stupid, like no one's gonna know because we're gonna edit it out. But then with like the live aspect of things, it doesn't really edit anything out. Like you
yeah.
have to be your true authentic selves. But I just can remember some conversations that I've had with like C-level executives who were so great at speaking in large rooms of people, and just didn't say at all, didn't use any like the space or language, body language, everything really connected. And then you get them in front of a camera and that red light turns on and they just freeze up. And I'm like,
Interesting. Huh.
what are you doing? And they're like, well, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, you just spoke in front of all these people and now you're like, you're dead silent. What's going on? And they're like, I got nervous. And I'm like, what? It's a camera. Like,
I
come on.
I
So
think
it's really,
yeah, I think it's funny about the camera. You know what it is about the camera when you're getting filmed? It's like the lights are all on your face and you've got the red dot and you can't see anyone. I think that's partly what it is you're looking into this black box and there's no face there. Like
yeah,
if you're,
I think,
I
yeah,
don't know.
but
I'm
it's the same question too that I have for like actors or actresses, because I've met some really amazing actors and actresses, and they get on stage and they play the
yeah.
character and they're all like no nerves at all. And then you get them behind the camera where they have to talk about themselves and it's like they shrivel up and they want to go hide somewhere. And it's like, but you were just able to put on such a wonderful performance. But the way they explained it to me, some of the actors and actresses I've talked to, they were like, because it's a character. I'm creating a character.
Yeah.
And it's more
So
comfortable for me not to act myself. I'm more comfortable acting like other people. And I'm like, that's an interesting dynamic. So I always wonder, and I'm curious about people, like if it's easier for them to be behind camera or on stage with people. It's just
that's a great
interesting.
question. Oh,
Yeah. So Angela said something before. She said, in my experience, those SMEs often don't want to be in the limelight and don't realize that everyone doesn't also have the deep understanding of their topic.
yeah.
It's like what you aren't also a thermodynamics. So this is a fantastic service. And then we have Mark. I'm sharing and waving right now so you can see the crowd. Mark, talking virtually online is so difficult for me. I like the feedback from the crowd. Oh yeah, because I guess you can feed off the energy. So that makes sense, Mark. And I can relate a little. In my pre-manufacturing life, I was a corporate trainer for the hospitality industry. Speaking in front of large groups of people was a walk in the park. Ask me to network with some people in a social setting, one-on-one, and anxiety goes through the roof.
How funny.
That's interesting. So I also find it easier to speak to a physical crowd. I agree, Mark. No feedback behind the camera. I like that. You can feed off the energy. I get more nervous speaking to kids than I do adults.
Huh. Why?
And because I think they, with the lack of life experience that they have no filter. And they're more honest, and like they aren't as shy or hesitant to be very raw with you in their feedback. Like if you suck, they're going to say you suck. They're not going to make it sound pretty or soften it. And the other thing is too, is I don't want to be that one person. Like if I say something where they're going to give up on something or not pursue something, I don't want to be that person that inspired them to make that decision. I want to be the person that inspires them to go for something, not avoid something. So I always get super nervous when I'm talking in front of kids and younger adults.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but there's benefits to public speaking, and that's one of the things that I want to ask you. So what are the benefits for public speaking? Why should people think about doing it more?
So many. I think the relationships that you get from public speaking is huge, because when you're speaking in front of a large audience, you reach so many more people. So you're able to connect with so many more people in a way that you just simply can't through online interaction. I mean, there's something about physically being in the room with someone. It's a completely different type of experience that I think sometimes we downplay the importance of like the physical sensory experience that it takes to build a relationship with someone. And there's only so much of that you can have when you're sitting behind a Zoom screen. Like this is a wonderful experience. But if Megan, if you and I were in the same room, it would be even more, there would be an even stronger, I think, connection between, because we'd be able to hear each other, smell each other, touch each other. There's something about being in the room. So I think that's one of them, is just the quality of the relationships and connections that you can build, which for me is like first and foremost, like how can, it just gets you building connections with people. And from a business development perspective, it's just huge. It just opens a lot of doors for you to connect with partners. I've loved that part of it, and collaborate with new partners that you would have never known before. And that allows you to help serve your clients better, because the more people that you know who have, complementary skills that you do, that, I sell marketing services, but maybe I'll go to a conference, I'll meet someone who sells in e-commerce, they build e-commerce stores, right? So it allows you to offer more to your clients when they have challenges, right? I mean, and I've seen that happen where I've been able to bring in partners from these speaking engagements that I met at these events. So I would say that the relationships, and from a business development perspective, and also just personally from like confidence perspective, there's something about speaking in public that really helps to build your confidence, I think, the more that you do it. And I think that's so important as women, that we have opportunities.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So we all are familiar with FIRST Robotics, and one of the things that they have to do is they have to put together a presentation, like a pack and a portfolio of like their robotic build. And it's really, I mentor a small robotics team in Beloit that I'm from, Turtle Tech. They're awesome group of kids, and they were showing me their portfolio and asking my input on some of the writing stuff and like the formatting of their document and everything. But they were like telling me who they present in front of, and these kids' confidence, like it was mind blowing. Because when I was that age, I was like trying to find the darkest room to hide in and like avoid eye contact and not talk to people at all. And I think it's really helpful, especially for younger kids as they grow older and they're working on figuring out what they want to do the rest of their lives. They have to be sociable at some point and talk to people and do interviews. And I think First
Yes.
Robotics really sets them up for success for that. There's a lot of comments. This is like the most comments I think I've had during a show, and I'm loving all of it. So I appreciate you guys. I enjoy the podcast experience. Online interviews are my jam. You're very good at it too, Angela. Kids' honesty can be brutal at times. Tell me about it. My 2 toddler boys are like, they don't hold back. They are honest. Absolutely. Impacting kids is a lot of pressure. You don't want to get it wrong, too much at stake.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Terry. Thanks for joining. Each circumstance is different. I've had to develop a skill set for both. I always love being face to face in front of one person or 500 people. The immediate feedback is awesome. In front of a camera is a different skill, and it has taken over 10 years to get comfortable. Megan, you do an awesome job at both. Thank you. I try to build up both skill sets as they both have their place for making. Yep, they sure do. Hi, Nikki. Thank you for joining us. It's also a muscle to train. I think taking theater in school when I was younger helped me feel more confident speaking in front of people. Same with interviewing. So when I hang out with Nikki, she is so much fun to watch because just the questions she asks and the stories that she tells, like she is always talking to people, and it is amazing to see. So if you're at a show and the automation ladies are there, shadow Nikki, because she is just like boom, boom, boom. She remembers people's names. Like I don't know how that's one of the skill sets that I'm trying to strengthen, because sometimes I forget people's names, but she remembers them, and I'm like, when did you meet that person? She's like, oh, years ago. And I'm like, how do you remember them after that long? Like, it's awesome to see her walk shows and talk to people. I had a similar experience with talking to kids at the first robotic contest. So then, Nicole, what is like your checkoff list to prep for public speaking events?
Ooh, I
Because
love that.
I'm sure it's going to be different depending on each individual. And like, have you seen High School Musical?
Yes. Oh, I
Do you
have.
remember like when the brother and sister are getting ready to sing and all the crazy like
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. So the first thing I think is a checkoff list is knowing your audience. That's huge
okay.
for me. So I want to be able to understand exactly who I'm speaking to before I because even if you have like a story or a topic that you want to share, you got to tailor it to whoever your audience is.
Right.
So I really, first things first, I want to really understand my audience. And I'm not shy about sending a survey out to them. So if I'm preparing, like the last time I gave a talk, I was like, I want to understand more about this particular challenge in B2B e-commerce. I was giving a talk on the 5 phases of change that companies go through and how to navigate people through that process. And I was like, I want to hear from the people who are going to be in the room. What do they think about this? What are their challenges? And understand from them so I could kind of make sure that my topic was geared towards addressing those challenges and potentially presenting some solutions based on that. So I'll send out a survey, beforehand to just like gauge, get a lay of the land. And that helps me with my content. It helps me figure out specifically what I should focus on and what I should prepare.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Yeah, and it was really fun. I mean, anyway, so that's why I really want to understand the audience and talk to them. And so in addition to the survey, I actually had interviews with a few of them too, to just, hey, what do you think about this? And just kind of get their feedback on it. So that's one thing that I'll do. And then I always, always, always recommend that you need to have a story. There needs to be, like when you're creating your content for your talk, when you're just starting it out, you've got to introduce a story. And it really helps with the nerves, I think, because public speaking is very, as we've talked about, it can be very, stressful. But if you're telling a story, especially if it's a personal story that's personal to you, I find for me, it's a lot easier to talk about because it's something I've gone through and know very well because I've lived it intimately. And if there's a way that you can kind of connect your story to whatever the content is or the point that you're trying to make or the insights that you're trying to share with the audience, and create an analogy of some sort, it also really helps for it to stay, people to remember it, right? They're going to remember it if there's like a story tied to it. So, like the last talk I gave, I used the example of my two daughters learning how to play a musical instrument. And so I kind of like shared about these phases of change and how it was like my daughters learning how to play an instrument. And so having like an analogy that you can use to help illustrate those points. So I like to come up with an analogy that I'll use in the talk. Some other things I'll do is I just, I'll write it out, but I rehearse it, and I rehearse it in front of people. So I'll rehearse it in front of my daughters. I'll rehearse it in front of my friends. I will rehearse, and I feel like you can't, some people are different. Some people like to wing it. I'm not one of those people. I think the more that you can practice, so that you're so comfortable with it, the better you're going to be on stage. It's going to help reduce some of the nerves because you know the material like the back of your hand. So I definitely rehearse it in front of people and then ask for their feedback too on delivery. And I also record myself beforehand. So I'll record myself speaking so that I can see, how am I using my hands? How can I, use them differently? Maybe if I know, like sometimes you'll notice things that you never even thought that you were doing, right? I recorded myself before speaking, and I was clenching my hands like this while I was talking in my recording. I was like, oh, that feels a little bit like off-putting, right? Like it doesn't feel natural and comfortable. So I will actually record myself and watch it back beforehand to see if there's anything that I can do to, make it better. So those are a few things. And then the other thing is I'll go to the venue beforehand, like the day before. I want to check it out, make sure I understand the AV equipment, how the setup's going to be, what it looks like, just so I can mentally kind of get myself there in that space. And those are kind of like the main things that I do. And then of course, the affirmations, you got to talk yourself up. So I'll never forget the last engagement I gave. I just like looked in the mirror before I was about to go out, and I was like, you got this. It's going to be great. You're going to be fantastic. The other thing I think that you need to remember is you have to think about like the fact that there is something that you have to share that this audience needs, right? Like you're there for them. You're there to help them with whatever problems that they're having. So if you, as much as possible, can think about what do they need? How can I help them with whatever the problem is? And preparing by really having empathy for them and their situation, and understanding that you're there to serve them and help them, that really helps kind of reduce some of the anxiety a little bit, because it's less about you. It's more about what can you do to help the people that are in the audience with whatever their problem may be.
Yeah, I got a tip from, I don't remember if it was you or not, but someone was telling me, because I was like, I get so nervous when I see a bunch of people looking at me, and they're like, pick one person out of the audience that's the most engaged with you and pretend you're having a one-on-one conversation with them. And I thought that was a really good tip. Yeah.
That's a good tip.
I was just like, that's interesting. We got, this is awesome that people are commenting. Kids also need to develop the ability to speak off the cuff. Everyone should practice. Yes, they should. So true. Yeah. And I feel like that's why a lot of people enjoy Mavens, because this happened today. I forgot to send you the show structure ahead of time, and we're like, we'll just wing it. It'll be fine. And I think people enjoy that authenticity. So if kids can get comfortable with that, they can really build authentic relationships with people, especially on the business level. Becca said, never thought of that. Thanks for that nugget. So then Kioma was talking about the analogy. I love using analogy when I teach about STEM. The kids get it better. I think everybody does though too. Like it's easier to like imagine something with an analogy, I think. Yeah. So I'm all for those. And she said, how do you feel comfortable hearing yourself speak? I'm not too great about hearing myself. And Mark said something similar. Record yourself. I'd be afraid to watch me.
It's definitely not pleasant to watch yourself back. It's very humbling, I will say, which I think helps, honestly, because I think if you're going to do public speaking, there is a humility to it, right? Like you're there to serve those people, and it I don't know. So you're right. It's every time I watch it back, I'm like, oh, I don't like it either, but I just kind of bite the bullet and do it.
I've spoken at some events where they've had it recorded, and one of the things I have to work on is the amount of times I say I say that a lot.
I say like
yeah, that too. Ugh. Like Always work. So then what's your opinion about slides?
Ooh, great question. So I like my slides to be very, I got to tell you, I have a kind of a pet peeve when I go to events and I see people and they have these slides that are just like full of data, like just so much text and
Yeah.
pictures on the slide. That's way overwhelming for me. So I like
Mhm.
my slides to be very like a lot of imagery. So it'll just be a slide with a picture and maybe a few bullet points. Um,
Mhm.
because what happens is if you have a slide that's got all this stuff on it and you're talking, people don't know what to pay attention to. They're like, do I listen to her or do I read the slide? But if you're talking and you have a slide with a picture that kind of illustrates what you're talking about, it's much easier for people to connect and understand. So, like, for example, my last presentation, when I was talking about my daughters, one of my slides just had a picture of my daughters playing the piano. And then I talk about whatever the experience might be, and it really helps. So I prefer to keep your slides minimal as possible in terms of the content that you put on them. And maybe that
Mhm.
means that you just go through more slides, right? Maybe instead of packing all of that information onto one slide, you kind of break it out across several so that you can really hit home those points one by one by one rather than overwhelming people with all this data from one slide. What do you think
Yeah.
about slides, Megan?
I dislike them a lot because I feel like they're a little bit boring
Mhm.
because they're so linear. So I try to do what you just suggested. I try to pack them full with imagery and not so much text. There was one gentleman that I saw in Illinois. I wish I remembered his name, but he was doing a presentation on technology and how younger generations are using more technology to communicate. So he was like talking about Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter. And I don't think TikTok was out at that time when he was talking about it. But a lot of his presentation, yes, he had slides, but it wasn't, what is that platform? Prezi. It was a Prezi
Oh yeah.
presentation.
Oh yeah.
And he created it so beautifully that it was like you were going on the journey with him as he was
Mm.
speaking. And he included music and
Wow.
animation. And it was kind of like you were watching a theater presentation almost. Like he was really good
Cool.
at his presentation. So I prefer that stuff more because I get easily distracted when I get bored. So if your conversation is just linear slides and you're reading the bullet points, I'm going to start losing interest maybe about after 3 minutes of you talking. So I really need something to like
Keep you
keep
going.
my just keep me engaged. So any kind of like unexpected things or surprising things, I it really makes me engage more with
Yeah.
the speaker. So I try to like mimic those speakers. Who's one of my favorite speakers? Lisa D. Block. I don't know if you guys know her. She's from Hybrid Manufacturing. She did a presentation about being a woman in manufacturing, and I like literally leaned in my chair. Mind you, she didn't have a slide presentation and she stood behind a podium the entire time, but the way she just vocalized everything and the emotion and the energy she put
Mhm.
into it, she really connected with the audience. And I was like leaning in and I was just like, I love this woman. Another one is Becca. I have to find her last name. She's hilarious. She does like uh skits and dances and she'll do character changes and Angela knows her.
Wow.
Angela, you had her on one of your events for WIM. So if you remember her last name, put it in the chat. But her name is Rebecca, and she's just such a fantastic lady. And she does singing, and she's
Wow,
just
cool.
such a character. Like so much fun. So I think if you have a chance to be more personable and not use slides, pick
Yeah.
that route.
Yeah. I
Because
think that's great advice.
they're just dated. I don't know. Do you have a list of don'ts for people who do public speaking?
Ooh, a list of don'ts. Okay, I would say this. I think one of the things, and this is because from my own personal experience, this is something I struggle with, is when you get nervous or when I get nervous, I tend to talk faster. So I tend to talk even faster and I don't stop and pause. So I would say
Mhm.
one of my don'ts or maybe it's a do, I don't know, is just to make sure, don't be afraid of the pause. Don't be afraid to slow down and take a moment to stop. because then the emotional impact of what you're saying can really settle with your audience.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. I mean, I guess that's not a don't, that's more of a do, but I have to consciously practice that because when I get nervous, I tend to talk faster. But
Yeah.
so I would say make sure you pause is one thing. What's another don't? My gosh, Megan, good questions. Sheesh. And we're live. I got to think about that one a little bit more. Don'ts.
I have one from personal experience.
Yeah.
Don't drink anything bubbly on an empty stomach. You might accidentally burp while you're talking. Happened to me personally. Made the audience laugh. Was great comedy relief, but
Yeah.
whew,
I would say don't be afraid to use comedy. Like use
yeah,
humor in your talk for sure. People love that. Use funny memes, use funny GIFs if you're going to use slides. Like don't shy away from that. Like I sometimes you go to these conferences and people feel like they got to be all professional and stiff, but people are going to remember the presentations and the speakers that bring lightness and humor into whatever they're sharing. So
yeah.
don't be afraid to use humor wherever you can.
Also, don't be afraid to have like an entry song either, because I've been to a couple presentations where they had an entry song and it just got the entire crowd dancing and like, who is this person? And I think the more you can engage with your audience and pull them in your presentation is a good one too.
What do you
But
think about the sizzle reel? You know how
the
some people
sizzle.
start their talks and they have like the sizzle reel that's like, have you seen those before where they it's like this video montage where they come on the stage? Have you ever seen them? No.
Okay, so I was at the WIM Summit last year, and one of their last speakers was from John Deere.
Mhm.
Amazing woman. And I kind of was wondering if she was a speaker just because of her presence and the way that she was
Mhm.
dressed. And then she had a hat on. And I'm like, okay, who's that? Um, and they did a video of John Deere and the hat reference that the hat she was wearing was actually referenced in the video. And it literally
Oh,
had people crying
that is
from the
so
video into the
cool.
presentation. So I think they're effective if done right.
Exactly.
So, um, I don't mind them, especially if they make me emotionally connect to the speaker afterwards. I think that's always a plus.
Yes,
So,
I agree. If it's done right like that and it
but if
builds that
it's
kind of emotional connection. But if it's just kind of like this montage of just randomness, sometimes I'm like, really? I don't know. But
yeah, where it looks like that black screen with the thing just bouncing back and forth. I've seen those too, and I'm just like, what are we? Is this for comedy or are we serious here? Like, how are we doing this? You should have.
yeah. I
Angela
love
said
the walk-up song though. I think that's a fantastic idea. So good.
it's empowering, and the speakers I've talked to that do it said it helps them relax. It gets them pumped up and just
Yeah. Especially if it's a
relax.
song they love, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Rebecca Murray. She's awesome.
Okay,
If you
cool.
guys don't know her, look her up. She does really good coaching too for presenters. So definitely look her up. Hi, Heather. What is your advice to young women wanting to get into the manufacturing field? So that is one of the questions that we had that I wanted to talk to you about. So for women who are in male-dominated industries like engineering and manufacturing, why is public speaking
Mm.
important for them? Like, why should they pursue more opportunities to speak up? And maybe you can include, advice for them too in getting into the manufacturing field.
Oh, that is such a great question. There is such a need for women voices in manufacturing because women bring such a unique perspective to manufacturing that is lacking. And I'll tell you, when I went to this last speaking engagement that I did, going into it, I was incredibly nervous because it was a tech conference. Okay. And I'm a
Mhm.
marketer. I have no technical background whatsoever. I'm not a developer. I don't know code or any of that. Right. And so I'm
Mhm.
going to this conference and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a unicorn. These people are all super brilliant. They know so much about all of this technical stuff. And here I am, and I'm going to be talking all about like fluffy bunny, people and how to navigate people through change. And so beforehand, I was kind of like, had to psych myself up to say, wait a second, this perspective is important specifically because it's different,
Mhm.
specifically because it's not something that you typically will hear a lot of the time at these tech conferences, right? So I
Yeah.
would say that makes it even more important for women to speak up because you bring that different, unique perspective. So if you feel like what you have to share, your opinion is different, don't let that deter you. That should, if anything, impel you to share what you have to say because nobody else is saying it. And that doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that nobody's saying it. So it needs to be said by someone if that's your
Right.
experience. So as a woman, I would say lean into your voice and your intuition and share wherever you can what you have, what your experience is, because it's needed. It will make manufacturing stronger, better. And people need to hear it. And so for women that are looking to get into manufacturing, that's a great question, Megan. I think you should answer that one because that's like your sweet spot. That's what you do all the time.
I mean, my advice for women who are looking to get into manufacturing, definitely connect with as many other women as possible. And I've mentioned this before on other episodes where when I first started out, women were very, very competitive with each other because there was so few of us. But since then, there's more and more. Like we're closer to 30% now across the sector. And I think COVID helped shift that over too because when COVID happened, that's how I met Nikki Gonzalez and Allie G and Sammy Birch and Ellie Wilkins. We all started, well, Allie started the group and invited us all in, but she started this group where we all could just go and be who we were and not get shamed for what we were feeling at the time that we were feeling it. We became really close friends, and now we support each other's businesses. We connect each other to other potential clients or customers. We vent to each other. We meet each other up at trade shows, which I think is huge because I remember going to trade shows by myself and having it be such a scary experience because it was dangerous. Like I would walk to places by myself. I wouldn't have really anybody to meet up. Yeah, there was times where I had some of the guys who were with me that would walk me back and forth, but I think it's just overall a better experience to connect with other women. And also don't be afraid to be the first. Like I think some people hesitate to pursue something because they would be the first, and um, don't be afraid to be the first because you being the first is going to help someone else. Like you mentioned earlier, you're going to connect with someone and inspire them by just showing up, and then they're going to pursue it.
Yeah.
So representation really matters. And I think it's important for more women to speak up and do public engagements because when other women are watching them speak up, that's going to give them inspiration to want to do it and be a presenter or be the lead on a project or be an owner of a business. I feel like there's so many benefits of seeing other women succeed and being excited for them because it's going to inspire them to be better versions of themselves too. So that's why.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'll tell you, I worked for many years for a company that was founded by a woman. And it was incredibly inspiring for me to actually see her thrive, this business grow every year. And it was a completely woman owned business. The entire executive team was all women. And for me, who wanted to eventually own a business someday, it was just massively, massively inspiring to see her example and everything. So I can't echo everything that you said enough there. It's so, so important for women to see other women thriving in leadership positions because it shows them that it's possible and what they can do.
Yeah, well, I remember being at an AMT event with Drew Crow, and there was a robotics team there that was showing off their robot. And Drew's very charismatic, and he loves to talk, and he loves to connect to people. And I tell him this all the time. So it's like sometimes you just gotta like give them a chance to talk because he gets so passionate and exciting, and he just loves talking. Well, there was one girl with the robotics team, and I was asking each of them like what they did on the team and how they helped create the robot. And she was standing like this and she was in the back. All the guys are forward. And I'm like sitting there watching her, waiting for her to speak up. And every time one of the guys said something, Drew would like comment on it and stuff. And then I finally was like, hey, I want to know what you did. And Drew looked at me and I'm like, I want to hear her, let her talk. So she like kind of went like this and then she started talking. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So you like helped keep everything together and you project managed a lot of these things so that you made sure the team was on time with deadlines. You made sure the budget was met, all this stuff. I was like, you have a pretty serious, important role. So we started chatting or whatever. And then they started talking to some of the manufacturers that were in the audience. And that was one of the things we were there to encourage. We were like, no, come talk to them, bring them to you, like pull them in the conversation. And as we were leaving, she was sitting talking to someone and I tapped her on their shoulder and she looked at me and I said, don't be afraid to speak up because you are going to be the one that gets other girls to join this team. I'm like, that's my challenge to you. Get at least 5 more girls to join your team. I was like, don't be afraid to be that leader. And she's like, okay. And she like, her body language changed and like, she just was like standing taller because she knew that I was like paying attention to her. And I think we need to do that for each other more in this sector. So, and I see it happening. So it's really fun.
So cool.
We are getting so many comments. So yes, a walk-up sign or song. For my walk-up song, I would use something by Pink or Vanilla by Lola Rose.
Yeah, love that.
That would be really cool. That represents a good do in public speaking. Do remember that the audience is there to hear your expertise. That's so true. Becca's going to be on later in the year. She's a translator.
Yeah.
Super excited to have this conversation with her. Shannon said, I agree with you. The more we could support each other, the better. Nikki Gonzalez, we sponsor our first team at Quote Beam, and we'll have 2 of the girls from the team on Automation Ladies. I'm so excited. That's awesome. Let me know when that episode is. The other cool thing about Automation Ladies, and this is something that Allie, the co-host of Automation Ladies, did. They do kids PLC kits. So they're sending PLC kits to high schools so that kids can get real life. And I think it's younger than high school kids too, Nikki. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they're sending the PLC kits so that kids can get the real life experience of what's going on in the industry. Yeah, super awesome. And they got cool stickers too. Chiorma says this is part reason why I have Steve Devo's career rating to just women, because in STEM spaces, the guys tend to dominate the conversation. So true.
Love it.
And that's not a hate on guys. It's not. But you guys just don't know when to be quiet sometimes. Stop talking.
They're so passionate, right? I think that's what it is. They really care and they do a great job. And yeah,
they are. And then, so I create a safe space for them to begin to learn, to hear their voices and get that confidence level up. That's awesome. I really, I want Kiorma to come on to Mavens too, because she's just an amazing person. I've seen her talk and she does really good at speaking. I saw a couple of her videos. And then Shannon first is incredible. It really is. If you can sponsor a team or mentor a team, please do that. So yeah, this has been a really fun, fulfilling conversation. I think this is the most comments I've ever gotten on Maven, so that's super exciting. I think everybody could learn to be a better speaker, but I want to ask you one more question before I let you go. So if you had one ask for our audience, what would your ask be for them?
Ooh. My ask would be, if you are a woman, don't be afraid to share your story, whatever it is, wherever it is. Speak up, wherever you're at. Don't be afraid. People need to hear your story. There are people out there that are going to benefit from exactly what you've been through, that need to hear what you have to share, whatever it is. So don't be afraid to share it. If you're a man, I would say, encourage the women in your life to speak up. Be someone who's going to advocate for them, to share their stories, to share their experiences at home, at work, wherever it is. Do whatever you can to champion women, because the more that you champion women, the more everyone is going to rise wherever they're at. So speak up. That's my ask. Don't be afraid to speak up and share. What you have to say matters. And that's my ask.
I love that. I worked for a company and I was one of the few girls on the team. And it was irritating at first because I didn't understand what he was doing. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. He's giving me an opportunity to share my voice because he knows that I know what I'm doing. But he would always call on me first and be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Even if I was like in the back of the room, Megan, what do you think about this? Well, let's get some ideas from Megan. And I'm just like, will you stop picking on me first? Like, I don't want to be the first one to talk. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. He's giving me a chance to to use my voice without actually like calling me out for that.
Yeah.
And then Angela was saying a student membership to WIM is $35 per year and provides an opportunity for young women to meet and network with their mentors. That's awesome. Do they do stuff with First, Angela? That would be cool to know. And then Kiorma, thank you so much. I got so many good tips. My public speaking skills is going up. Yes. And they were already fantastic too. So that's awesome to hear. And then Shannon, thank you. I'm starting my public speaking journey this year and needed this extra inspiration. Yes, Shannon. If you need to practice with any of us, feel free to reach out. And then Nicole, thank you for encouraging the men to elevate women in general and especially in the manufacturing workforce. If you're not following Terry, please follow him. He's got some really great books about manufacturing, and he is a huge advocate for getting younger kids involved in manufacturing and does a tour around the United States. So connect with him, learn more about that. And we keep getting more. I think it depends on the chapter. So I got to let you guys go, though. We're almost at time. I really appreciate everyone joining in. Nicole, if anybody has any more questions for you, what is the best place to get a hold of you and how can we connect with you?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to have a conversation with you and get to know you more. It's been such a delight to hear all your comments in the chat. It's been so fun. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Nicole Donnelly, DMG is my, what do you call it? My LinkedIn URL.
Handle?
There you go. Handle.
The handle. That's what the young kids are calling it anyways. I'm just like showing my age more and more. I don't like that, but that's okay. So everybody, thank you for joining us this week. It's almost the weekend. I really appreciate it. Please tune in next week. We have a pre-recorded session with Daila Ray. She is a welding instructor. She's super powerful woman, and it's March 8th, which is International Women's Day. So come join the fun, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.